So I don't want to go a whole lot further on the doors and the cab until I get a little warm weather, pull this thing out, do a little blasting. I've got these fenders. This one, almost no rust. Perfect condition, but it's been hit. It's been hit pretty hard in the front end, and somebody's tried to straighten it. And there's a couple spots I think they might have used some heat. I wish they wouldn't have, but that's okay. I think we can still salvage this thing. So check it out. So you can see right here, this is pretty good around it right there, and it kind of disappears. It gets lost, and again, he's, I think, beat it into it some, but kind of missed the actual body line, and right, you can see it all the way through there. So we're gonna try and get that pushed out of it. Then there's a lot of smaller divots and things like that in it. Again, it looks like he added some heat back here at some point. Not a fan of that. Definitely looks like he's had heat here. Whatever, that's not a problem. We're gonna fix that. First thing you know is I want to make sure that we can get this headlight ring really close to what it should be. So we're gonna do a little bit of sheet metal work here and try and get this thing all knocked out. So see what I have here. I've got another fender right over there that's going to at least give me a rough shape. That one, for some reason, somebody has cut some of the edges out of it, so I don't know why they've done it. But the right now is we need to get this edge back, and I can see it there. I can see it right there it is. So hopefully when I start pushing that out, maybe some of this other stuff will kind of go away, or at least give me a path to make it go away. Not sure my best route right now. I think I'm gonna get my body hammer, put it up against this, try and knock it out with a dead blow, at least get it close. Then what I may have to do is get a dull, get a chisel and just dull it and kind of put it on there and kind of get it to the right shape. But yeah, right now I just want to see if we can't at least get this to start showing a little more. So right now, that matches the contour pretty good. It's a little flatter than it should be, but I think it still fits up in there, and we'll be able to kind of make that work. Put this thing up. Again, you can really see the line right here on the bottom, on the back side of this. So I'm hopeful. Put my hammer in here. Like so, get a dead blow and just knock against it. Try and straighten that all back out. Don't want to hit this hammer with another hammer, so again, while I'm using my dead blow. So you can kind of see it's already coming right out. Yeah, I gotta hit a little more right there, but that's, you can almost see that line starting to make sense. Now, again, all this comes out, then I'll have to fold it back in and get this lined up. All right, so yeah, starting to kind of see that come around. Now if I can get a good dolly in the back of that and kind of start forcing this back down in, you can kind of see these wrinkles. And these wrinkles are where this is actually flattened. So hopefully when I push that back down in it, it'll stretch that back out and you'll see them kind of flex out. That's got a nice blunt edge and it's not too far from that, so I'll use this as my dolly. So this definitely needs to come out some, because it's got that kind of, you see that extra bulge, so we need to push this out. But it's already pushed that headlight ring to a little truer look. I mean, just that little bit that I've already done there. All right, so let's see. That's not bad. I mean, it's starting to look like it's fixable anyway, right? So, see if I can knock that out of it. So I think it's, I mean, I've still got a lot of massaging to do right there, but see, it's still starting to come around. I think I need to go ahead and hit around this again and kind of form that. But at the same time, with this other fender, I should probably get it up here and compare it a little bit. Yeah, it's actually getting really solid there. I'm liking it. But I do believe I need to go around it again and try and define this a little better. So I'll put my hammer in here one more time. Not too bad. What I need now, I think what I'll do is I'll take my other fender here and I'll lay it down in this area. That way I can know exactly where that line should be. Alright, so cut a little circle. It's not perfect, but it's enough to kind of see how we're looking here. You can see right there, this side still needs to come out. So yeah, and you can see right there, well, that whole thing needs to be pushed out. So that area right there. Yeah, now you're starting to see a little rounder. So come back the next day, looking over some of the stuff I had done last night to this fender, and pretty close. I do see a couple things that kind of need to touch up. So when you look at the socket here, right there is a little low spot, and this thing's been hit, and you can kind of tell around this corner it's probably a little far in. Now What's great is I do have another fender that the socket, the eye socket I'll call it, is pretty good. But this all has to be completely flat because when you put the headlight trim on it, it's got a touch. And this thing's pretty good, but from about here to here, you can kind of see it's got a little bit of a low. Trying to hold this together with one hand is going to be rough, but you can kind of see I'm going to line these two up. See how that's flatter that one is? So it's like this whole front of this fender needs to come forward still. Right now, too much arch right here. And that whole headlight on this side needs to come forward. And this basically needs to push in. So this push out, this push in this direction. Sometimes it takes a little while to get exactly what you want. But having two of these fenders side by side, when you start to really compare them, put them next to each other, you know, roughly they look right. But man, how far off is that? So we're going to see what do I need to do to kind of push that out and see if we can get that shape a little closer. So I've gotten this curve about right. Again, a little bit of work. And I about screwed up. When you're doing this, make sure the fender you're comparing it to is correct. I got to looking at that one a little bit, and it had a huge dent in the bottom of it, which was kind of skewing what I was getting. So I went outside and I got one of my big truck fenders that is almost perfect. Unfortunately, it's the wrong size wheel opening, so it's kind of worthless unless I want to weld that up. But you can kind of see now, that is just right. See that? So now we've got that opening right. What I've got left is a lot of this around the edge is kind of really ratty looking. So I took an old dolly and I kind of chewed it up a little, but I made for the back side of this so I could start to kind of when you're using a dolly, especially dolly on, remember, you're not pounding this thing. You're not trying to do it all at once. What happens when you hit two pieces of metal and you've got your dolly sitting right here, you pound on this thing, what you're doing is you're actually stretching that metal. You're going to see this metal is going to spread apart and it starts to stretch. It's actually going to get thinner when you hit it. So metal's got a certain threshold that you can hit it and it's not going to deform. You want to keep it within that threshold, so you want to be just smaller taps. The harder you hit, the more likely you are to see deformation or changing the shape. And all we're trying to do right now is change the form of this. So, again, as I've gone around, that's looking pretty good already. Trying to take those little bitty dents like that out just a little at a time. You don't want to get it all at once. You're not going to get it all at once. Matter of fact, you'll just make a mess the more you try. But as I can start to kind of shape this back around to the form that it needed to be, and again, your dollies, that's a big deal with this one. Again, I just took one, kind of formed the shape so I could stick it up inside of here. and have some dolly on dolly action. Oh man, you can see I got a little carried away right there. Now, I don't know if I'll ever get this perfect. I'll definitely get enough where I can put a little filler in and straighten this without having a lot of filler in it. But getting these lines exactly perfect. The metal's been moved around a lot. I think what I'm going to do right now is go over there and get a little chisel, and just enough where I can kind of focus my hits and trying to find that inner line, because that inner line is almost completely gone. Alright, I gotta be honest, I don't want to dull up a chisel, so I took a small punch and give it a little round edge. Nothing major, but still enough I can kind of hopefully with my fingers, I can kind of hold this in here and just start to kind of give it a little. I didn't get to record it, but my wife was good enough to come out. She kind of held my dolly. And you can kind of see that line, right through there. Still got a few spots that I'll have to get the welder out and kind of fine tune, if you will, because they've cracked and some other stuff over the years. But I feel like the headlight bucket's going to go. I do. I really feel like it is. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get a piece of cardboard or something. I'm going to go over to that good headlight, and I want to mark exactly where all these lines are on the inner. And when I get back, hopefully I'll have good enough information that I can tell if I need to move anything around. Alright, so when I did that, it tells me that this is still just a little too far in. Not the greatest template I ever made, but you know, kind of put it in here. Let's see, I'm gonna line everything up. You can kind of see right there, my line disappears. So this line, which makes sense since I got a fold right here, this line's like it needs to, the whole thing needs to move out a bit. So by doing this, I'm going to attempt to make a little more adjustment to this. The more you beat on this stuff back and forth, the weaker it starts to get, and things like this are a bigger issue. So the other thing is, I think this needs to kind of fold down, so as it goes in and goes down a little bit, that might take this extra little bit around it. Again, I'm kind of using my, go between the dolly I just made and my hammer here. I'm not really fond of. This is, once I've bent that back, I'll try and drive this forward a little bit. Yeah, so I don't have quite the crispness of this line, but it is rolled pretty decent on the outside edge. It's enough that when I put this headlight bucket in, I think everything's gonna line up. And a little bit of weld and some flattening with a file and that good stuff might make a little difference too. There's need a little weld here and clean everything up. I think this is actually looking pretty solid. I've got a little area right here that needs to be kind of planished out. When I put that looks just right. This all kind of has came about. So again, I think this gets you far enough along watching this that you can kind of see a lot of little taps make a big difference. I mean, if you're going a long distance, I've said it before and I'll say it again, make sure before you go that distance you're going in the direction that you need to go. If I put a dent from here, I need to pull back here. I don't need to straighten back here in the back and work my way forward. I need to start here and pull and let the dents that are back here correct themselves. Again, if a push went this way, a pull this way would be the best way to get it back out. That's not always possible. I mean, to me, if I honestly were doing this by the book, I would probably take and cut a ring just big enough to go around this, make a cage, put in the middle of this, and then with a slide hammer trying to pull this whole light bucket at one time. Maybe a couple different spots and work my way around it. You know, maybe a hook. And I may still do that. I may still look at putting a ring behind this, giving it just a little bit of pressure and kind of using that as my, you know, as I start to pull it. But that'll be once it's mounted on the truck, I think. This fender, I don't believe I'm going to go any further with until it's mounted, other than to probably take it and go ahead and sandblast it and get it in some epoxy primer. Once that epoxy's on it, we can go ahead and we can grind that. We can do whatever we need to do as far as finishing this up. Now, I will still have some sheet metal work to do, so I'll grind that epoxy primer off, but spread it out, fix that, do all my grinding, put a new coat on it, go from there. Now we have a fender worth using. Guys, I hope that you like what you saw. Hit that button below, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment. Tell me if you had a better idea. I'd love to hear it because I'm always looking to learn. And hey, if I'm just really screwing everything up, tell me why, because again, I can take the criticism and I really just want to learn. Hopefully, you got something out of this.